Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Magazine Live. It is Friday, September 2nd. I am your host, Q, coming to you yet again from my mother's basement, and I am joined by my co-host, P. How goes it, P?
Incredible. I have never been more excited about an episode. Let's dive into it.
P's just really excited because I consented to letting him create an AI version of me. So I will now be able to live forever, much as P has in the digital realm. So it's Friday. You know how we do it, though. It is going to be a news and notes day. We're going to go to Twitter Spaces shortly after we wrap here, but we may take our sweet time and hang out with you guys over on the YouTube a little bit longer because we got some things to say and stuff to talk about. Let's dive right in. Canada sets the record straight in what could go down as one of the greatest gaslighting attempts by a government in the history of gaslighting. They will teach this to toxic men and women to learn how to gaslight their future partners, friends, and employers, employees, so on and so forth. The Bank of Canada took to Twitter to set the record straight on the quote unquote printing money claim. Hashtag, you asked us if we printed cash to finance the federal government. We didn't. I truly am baffled that the Canadian government has the audacity to just come look you straight in the face and say, we didn't print money to pay ourselves. We paid ourselves with your taxes. Like, what? This is ridiculous. And to be honest, I'm a little, I have to remind myself, I just have to remind myself that this is the same country that showed us that in a Western democracy, you can not have ideas that your dictator disagrees with. So honestly, there's a part of me that's like not surprised this is coming out of Canada. Thoughts on the gaslighting here, P? Are you impressed, ashamed that you couldn't gaslight as hard as the Canadian government has?
I mean, yeah, no, the Canadian government is a entity that has been in existence for even longer than I have, but it's fucking crazy. I mean, there are so many great Twitter threads about this. It's embarrassing. Let's put it that way. But it shouldn't surprise anyone. As we continue to go down the pathway that we are on, you are going to see more and more examples of governments that have sort of traditionally been trusted by the average person, just saying more, making more and more outlandish claims and relying on technicalities to or technical uses of jargon and language to try to justify the insane statements that they're making. We see this with the U.S. government. But the contrast here is particularly striking because, at least in this respect, the U.S. government has been more open. Like there's that famous interview with I forget what his name is, but like basically where at the end, it's like 60 Minutes, where he's like, so just to be clear, these are digital dollars. You just hit print on, and he's like, yes, and at least that is not something that is being lied about. The only thing, but
is that Kasari or something like that?
Yes, exactly. There's like a famous meme of him like looking really uncomfortable. But yeah, man, fuck these people. They're gonna keep trying to gaslight you. Do not let them.
I think Dow Jean's comment's great. I wish Canada was gaslighting, but we can't afford. He said but can't afford gas. So I think that's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, the one thing that governments are good at is gaslighting and lying. So I mean, take your pick which it is, if not both.
Let's get some good news though, go on, Chris.
Screw the banks, buy Bitcoin peer-to-peer. So Peach Bitcoin is a mobile app that is launching in Europe to buy. It's a beta version currently, but it is allowing people to buy Bitcoin peer-to-peer. Obviously, we mentioned it on the show in the past. There's platforms like HODL HODL, Bisq, RoboSats. The reason that this is launching in the European market, I haven't had a chance to really dive into it, but my suspicion is Europe is much stricter, even in the United States, when it comes to KYC and AML laws and rulings. So I know that they are very strict. They are trying to push forward rules for 2023 and 2024 about like if I were to send a transaction from myself to P or to Q or whatever, that I'd have to report the amount that is being sent for what reason, and basically the address that it's going to. Might as well just include a social security number or whatever they have over there. These are not in effect yet, but they are going through the EU's finance committee. I think it passed through their equivalent of like Parliament or Senate. But yeah, they're really trying to push for these rulings. So this is a way that it's a mobile application that was built for people in Europe.
Awesome. Great to hear. I want to talk about racism, and I want to talk about Bank of America.
I thought
Bank
they'd
of
been
America.
abolished, Q.
Oh, I mean, are you not friends with me? Like I've long established, like I laugh too much at racist jokes to not be considered racist by the woke left. So therefore,
But you
I
can't,
am.
because you have brown skin. So
This is true. This is true. But like, I kind of follow the Seinfeld rules of this. So like, I can make laugh at any like brown jokes, but like other races, I guess I'm not allowed to touch, and therefore I'm racist towards those other races.
no, you've got it right.
Right? Like Seinfeld. Like these are the Seinfeld rules. I don't make them. But let's talk racism and let's talk Bank of America. Bank of America made headlines a couple days ago discussing how they are going to now offer, just now starting to offer, Black and Hispanic people who want to buy their first home, zero down, zero mortgage payment, and zero closing costs. This is exciting news. This is for many people. This will be an opportunity for them to buy their first home. But it got me thinking. There was a program that President Obama helped push through, I believe in 2012, that allowed first-time home buyers to pay zero down when they bought their first home. I know this program because I tried to use it a few years back when I tried to buy my first home. And so I was really caught off guard by this. I was like, wait, but this exists. This program exists. But the only way this can be an announcement, the only way this can be, in essence, the virtue signal that it is meant to be, is if, in fact, these rules were not in place for Black and Latino people over the last 10 years, when, in fact, it has been available to everyone else, apparently, but just not these demographics. But hey, now Bank of America has let everyone know that Black and Latino people, you too, can get zero down mortgage, zero closing cost for your first home, the way countless other people have for the last decade.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is mostly just Bank of America trying to play into the kind of like woke narratives and drum up more support. What they've actually done here is they have identified specific regions that are, according to census, inhabited by sort of minority groups. And then they're basically saying we're going to prioritize giving these people zero down mortgages. They also, of course, say the opposite. They contradict themselves immediately by saying, like, but of course, we are holding these people to the highest standard, even higher than everybody else. But we are also just giving people 0% down mortgages. So I don't think, to your point, Q, I don't think this is like a particularly significant change in policy. It's being branded as such, but that's just them trying to capture more market share based on their wokeism.
Well said. Well said. Let's talk more virtue signaling. Let's talk some simping. Chris, what's going on?
Yeah, so Coinbase is simps for the U.S. government in No Simp September, or not Coinbase, CoinDesk. My apologies, CoinDesk. Simps for the U.S. government in No Simp September. They released an article recently saying just pay your taxes. This is obviously directed at Michael Saylor. They're saying that he evaded taxes and then he should just pay them because he's a multi-billionaire. As we've mentioned before, Saylor probably has a team of accountants and lawyers. They're trying. I'm assuming that they were using the tax system in the legal way in order to do that. Obviously, the Attorney General of District of Columbia is filing a suit against him, and that will be hashed out in the court of law. So we'll see what comes from that.
Let's talk some more L's. Let's talk my home state, which, for any of my close friends who have heard me bitch and moan about this, it is now official that as of August 31st, summer has kicked off in Los Angeles. And what I mean by that, Peace, stop moving around. I could hear you shuffling. What I mean by that, it is finally sunny in Los Angeles in the mornings. That is how I know it's summer, and it is wild to me that it took up until now for summer to begin. But as summer has finally kicked off in LA, so too has our electrical necessity, or how much electricity we're using. It seems as though everyone needs AC as the temperature rises, and of course now the power grids are getting put into question. And a message went out from our governor yesterday. Mind you, this message, I want to just rewind 24 hours before it, was coming off of the heels of his announcement that by 2035, you cannot buy a new gas car. Electric vehicles only will be sold in the state of California. Well, yesterday, the governor of California asked that people not charge their electric vehicles. I shit you not. So you were asked to not charge our electric vehicles in the state of California for the sake of the energy grid. In a state that already charges an insane amount per gallon of gas, in a state that the largest city in the state has zero, or zero is not inaccurate, I would say about 15% of the actual city of Los Angeles is accessible via public transportation, metro lines. This is an insanely out of touch request by a governor who simply virtue signals, does whatever his donors want and need, and has continued to convince woke left people, voters, just Democrat diehards, to essentially align with him, because if you don't, you are against California, against America, against this country, against its citizens. I'm sorry, but you, sir, you, Gavin Newsom, are against the people of California. You are against the people of California, and you are a deplorable human being sitting on your ivory castle. So I hope nobody unplugged their electric vehicles last night. I do not own a car, so I couldn't, unfortunately, go and excessively plug in, but I truly hope no one unplugged.
You made it sound like you were talking about like being in a hospital. Like there's going to be a campaign that's like unplug your loved ones if they're on life support.
Dude, like,
they do that in Canada. They do that in Canada.
No, they do not. There's not like energy focused things where it's like, hey, look,
euthanasia is like Canada? The 5th leading cause of death in Canada right now. Just saying.
Hey, Jack Kevorkian did nothing wrong.
You're making too many conclusions off of that one statistic, Chris. I love where your head's at. I love a good Canadian.
They hate you. The government hates you.
And the Third Reich, they clearly said that you have to remove your family from life support if you support the Canadian government. It's all in the text, my friends. It's all in the fucking text. No, I think this is insane. Look, I have been railing about this. We've been railing about this for fucking months, certainly. We just talked about it yesterday. The profound and inexcusable disconnect between the reality of energy production, energy consumption, and the decisions that people who claim to support environmentalism advocate for are just insane. I still cannot wrap my head around it. And this is a perfect example where you will not get anyone acknowledging the fact that California is making insane energy decisions. Instead, it will be like, but we're saving the sea turtles. And to be clear, sea turtles are fucking awesome, and we should be saving them. We should be doing everything that we can to protect the environment. But not using nuclear energy and then going down this path and then not acknowledging that these things are connected is fucking crazy, and it is maddening.
Yeah, I'll add one last note before we move on here. Q, the thing that's crazy is, I don't know if you know what California's residential electric is per kilowatt hour. I'm assuming it's probably like 30 to 40 cents per kilowatt hour. Or is that too high still?
That's too high.
It's not that high.
I was paying the low price when I still lived in the great state of California of only 26 cents per kilowatt hour.
All right, so it's close to 30. Let's just assume 25 cents per kilowatt hour. I know, like,
that's
a lot
insane,
of,
by the way.
Yeah, that is very high. I know where I live, it's like 8 or 9 cents, which is not great, but not horrible. But that just goes to show, if they're saying that you have to limit the amount of electricity that you're using, they're not reinvesting that 26 cents or whatever into ways to bring the price down. Like, either that's paying off politicians or what, but like, with that high price, the prices should come down via investment into more electrical infrastructure. So it's really absurd, in my opinion, that obviously the price you are paying is not being used efficiently in order to bring your prices down.
Like, honestly, on this mini rant, I want to bring up two things. Nancy Pelosi, yes, is also from California. I saw Nigel Lowry's comment, and fun fact, she is also Gavin Newsom's aunt. So talk about political families there. But actually, on the topic of the city or state not reinvesting this extra money that they're collecting and not helping to build things out, I'm going to bitch about my hometown for a hot second, because last weekend I tried to go to a hiking trail that I've truly gone to since I was like a child. And not only did they change the street parking laws, you had to pay via an app a minimum of $10 to park on the street to go on this hiking trail. And I started going down these rabbit holes of, when did this start? Why did this start? Can I, as a resident of this city, get a permit? I found out, like, technically, because I'm in a different jurisdiction of this broader city, no, I cannot. So I would have to be paying $10. And then when I asked them, what is the $10 going towards? Like, where is it being reinvested into? Like, is there plans to like build something larger for the city? No, it goes into the shared pool for city officials. So Rancho Palos Verdes, go fuck yourself. So sorry, you reminded me of that, Chris. So I hijacked for a second, but
No
I feel
worries.
like let's dunk on some more people. We haven't talked about Compass Mining in a minute. Let's go ahead and talk Compass.
Let's fucking go. Yeah, I mean, Compass Mining, dethroned golden child of the space, has had yet another blow against their their sort of rent your own miners in their co-located facilities narrative. They have announced that they are shutting down in the country of Georgia. They're shutting down those facilities because of excess energy rates. On August 31st, Compass Mining, the first marketplace for Bitcoin mining equipment, lost 2 of its third-party hosting strategic facility locations for mining in the country of Georgia due to rising energy prices. Now, people love to give shit to Compass, and I think a lot of it is warranted. I do think that these people are not bad actors, in the sense that I don't think that they were trying to take anyone's money and then run away with it. What has happened is they made some very I would say irresponsibly optimistic assumptions about the Bitcoin mining space and the price of Bitcoin and the economic environment. And then they've been selling things that they don't have any basis to sell. So what's been going on is, like, if you go on their website, you can still like purchase a miner, which then they tell you that they will put in a facility that they are running or that they have power contracts for. And they're telling people that, like, oh yeah, if you buy one right now, it will be in a facility running and you'll be earning Bitcoin, by end of September. Meanwhile, there are still people today who have been waiting for like 4 to 5 months and have already paid money and can't get it back. And so I think that initially there wasn't any bad intent, but it just seems like they've gone down a very dark path, and now they're just trying to recoup their expenses, which is just as fucked up at the end. But super disappointing. The takeaway that everybody should learn from this is, if it seems too good to be true, it is. We love to say not your keys, not your coin. There's another version of this, which is not your hash, not your cash. And by cash, of course, we mean Bitcoin. So if you don't physically own the Bitcoin miners that you are running, if you don't have access to them, there is a risk. There is a counterparty risk that you will get fucked. So take that into consideration. Do your homework and buy Bitcoin.
Chris, what did America's grandmother that nobody asked for do today or yesterday?
Oh, so you're referring to Janet Yellen, of course. She chooses violence for her European allies. What I mean by that is Janet Yellen recently said, price cap on Russian oil is one of the most powerful tools we have to fight inflation. Zero Hedge comments and says, in that case, prices are going to go a lot higher. What does she mean by this? I mean, obviously, we sanctioned Russia by taking them off the SWIFT system to try and harm them about the Ukraine-Russia conflict, while we've only seen the Russian ruble bid to new highs in the last, 8-year highs or 6-year highs for the Russian ruble. Obviously, gas prices are starting to skyrocket in countries that depend on Russian oil or natural gas. So things are getting much, much worse. She thinks by tightening restrictions on the Russians will only hurt them. I think it'll only help them. So we should not sanction them. And what I mean by that is if we sanction them, Russia then starts to jack up the prices, and it's like feeding the dictator more money to use against you. So I don't know how or why this would be a good thing, even in an adversarial environment. Like, this is not the way to go about things. Personally, I think it's only going to make people in Europe, basically get hypothermia and potentially die this winter. I do not think this is a good thing. I mean, people are already struggling to hit their electric bills as it is. I mean, the one woman in the UK went from like 12K per year to 64K per year for her electric bill. She's probably gonna have to shut down her small business unless she finds an influx of cash one way or the other. But it's not good.
Yeah, I to be honest, had this conversation last time with my dad where I more or less laid out a few different scenarios, and the best case scenario that, would resolve a lot of things would just be candidly to release sanctions on Iran and Russia for the sake of just oil and gas. Like, you are about to cause other countries to pay the price for the United States' decision here. So I the hopeful scenario, the one I'd like to see happen, is sanctions get lifted on Iran or even both countries for a window of time at least, so that Europe and Europeans can survive. What's more likely to happen is some form of a price cap, even stricter sanctions. And in turn, the people that are going to suffer are the European citizens, not even the policymakers there. And it's troubling because I think, and I don't want to like play into the doom porn of this at all, but there's a high possibility where I believe that rather than seeing countries fighting other countries for World War III, like World War III will just be a global fight for survival. And decisions like this will greatly impact what path we go down and how our society continues on. I know zero policymakers or decision makers are watching this plea, but if anyone is, I strongly urge you to reconsider these sanctions because you are playing with your citizens' lives as though they are chess pieces. P, let's talk about Chris and mine's retirement plans. I know that you have long established your retirement plans, but let's talk Chris and mine's retirement plans.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to inflation, Gen Z and millennials will now need approximately $3 million US in retirement savings to live comfortably. This is per Wealth Care Financial. This shouldn't surprise anyone, given the insane amount of money that has been printed over the last, decade, not even decade, since basically 2008, which I guess is more than a decade, a long fucking time. Something like 80% of all the US dollars that have ever existed have been printed since 2008, and that has consequences. I think it's interesting that a lot of people who are Gen Z or millennials are not tracking super closely on the exact amount that they will need to comfortably retire. And so I feel like this kind of stat can easily slip under the radar. But it is pretty damning. I mean, most people used to bank on Social Security, which we are all paying a fuck ton of the money that we earn into, as being a primary income source into their retirement. And that dream should be well and dead and sent to the glue factory at this point. You will not be able to survive if you plan to retire with the expectations that have been set for you by the people around you and by your traditional education. Millennials are or sort of empirically the most economically fucked generation in modern history. There is a very interesting, I think it's Wall Street Journal article about this that goes through the number of economic shocks that millennials have experienced um, in their as they have come into the workforce, and it is very damning. I think it's particularly interesting because boomers love to shit on millennials and be like, they're so entitled, they're fucking assholes. And the reality is, if you are a millennial, I am so sorry for you. I am not. Obviously, I am eternal. My finances are based on the Roman gold coins. But if you're in that situation, you got a tough road ahead of you.
I think one thing to consider too, I loved that Wall Street Journal chart because it like really shows you visually how the generations that came after Chris and mine's, like they didn't have to really deal with the repercussions and the side effects of 2007. But we've yet to actually see the big and baddest of all of the recessions that is imminent, in my opinion. So it remains to be seen. P, I do want to just ask for your eternal advice here. So, like, are you saying that if Chris and I had $3 million by the age 40 saved up, we couldn't retire safely?
All right, you're saying if you had $3 million US right now and you put it and you just sat on it and put it under your mattress, would you be good to go? Is that your question?
No, I'm trying to understand how much do I need to retire by age 40? Oh, eternal wise one, tell me.
Well, according to these stats, you're going to need $3 million in today's dollars. But when you're 40, that'll be a lot fucking more.
Yeah. So basically, you need $3 million, and then it needs to still keep beating inflation continuously.
Exactly.
So
the reason I asked the question is like, if you had $3 million right now and you went in, put it under a mattress, you would be fucked.
Nice.
That's right.
All right. Let's talk the thing that everyone has seen at this point online. Chris, can we roll the tape and then we'll dive into this story?
To be a nation of hope and unity and optimism, or a nation of fear, division, and of darkness.
So, as we highlighted here, as many of you have seen all throughout social media, Joe Biden took to the podium last night to call upon American citizens to listen to his pleas of help, to fight against the powers that be, and to protect our republic for the sake of democracy. I have a lot of thoughts as someone who has never been shy to criticize Joe Biden, and I'll openly admit, like, I was never going to vote for Donald Trump, so you can do the math there. This is a disgusting act, in my genuine opinion. At some point along the way, we as a country decided that it's not okay to have a difference of opinions. It's not okay to disagree. And quite frankly, I don't know when we made those decisions. I don't know why we made those types of decisions, but we're now dealing with the consequences of them. I truly urge people to not continue to be divisive over this. We can condemn the actions of Joe Biden, what he is saying. We can disagree with them, but this almost feels like he's trying to stoke the fires, and maybe naively. Like, I want to believe that whoever decided to make the lights of red and make the White House walls look red in the way they did, didn't realize what would happen. And to be honest with you, I'm at a point where I don't even know what the real shade of red is, because if you go and watch the video from more left skewing media outlets, it doesn't look as like dark. And then of course, when you look at more right skewing media outlets, it looks much more dark and frankly looks terrifying. For someone who ran on a campaign promise of unity and bringing our country back to the center, this is one of the most divisive speeches I've heard since the days of Donald Trump. And I'm truly floored by the rhetoric that came out of his mouth. It's just, I have no words other than I choose to not agree with you. I choose to not buy into the divisiveness. You are entitled to disagree with me. You can feel however you want. I welcome that opinion. You are entitled to that. And I'm more than happy to have a conversation with anyone from any perspective, because that's, I think, what this country needs a lot more than this fucking bullshit. Excuse my language.
So I saw the imagery from this and was just like, nope, fuck that. Can you go through some of the specific things that he said that you found particularly egregious? Like, what happened in that speech? What was it about?
So he really went after the MAGA right. He went after Donald Trump, and in turn also started to sort of condemn Republicans' viewpoints, perspectives, and their votes, in essence. Like, there became this almost us versus them rhetoric that was coming out of his mouth, which I'm trying to find the exact quote so I don't get skewered for misquoting him, but he condemned the Trump-led extremists and cast the midterm elections as a battle for the soul of the nation. It's just, there hasn't been this like, this was a lot of the rhetoric that was used in 2020. This was very similar rhetoric, and it worked on a lot of people. It had the highest turnout for a presidential election in the history of the country. And each candidate, both Trump and Biden, are number one and number two all time for most votes cast for a presidential candidate. So to me, this is a disgusting way to create that tension and to create this desire to get people to like come out and vote. And I think it was really an attempt to stoke that. It pissed me off a lot. It turned me off, because at this point, what Joe Biden did is, in a period of time where there hasn't been as many of these attacks in the way that Donald Trump made sure we had an attack almost every single day on a different group that didn't agree with him, you now are seeing, in essence, like a return to that rhetoric, this us versus them. There was also a line about how, the Republicans don't, this is to save our republic. And that was like such a concerning phrase to me. I was like, when did we go from a country to a democracy? And now you're just going to phrase it as a republic. I saw the freaking Hitler memeified version of this. And like, the scary thing is it's so eerily accurate. And you pick the worst day to shave your Hitler stash. But it's really, his rhetoric was around dividing people and creating this us versus them, Republicans, MAGA, Trump versus right, essentially labeling and creating them as wrong and becoming the arbiter of what is right.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tale as old as time, right? If you don't want people to focus on the real issues, you artificially create conflict to distract them from what's going on. And then you present the frame that you are the only people, the only group that can save them from the boogeyman. And I think you're absolutely right. I agree with everything you said. It's incredibly disappointing to see the extremes that the Biden administration is going to in order to try to create that narrative. Now, to be very fair, this is exactly, as you said, what, like, I mean, Trump did this very, very aggressively during his campaigns. I mean, it was extreme, but I think it's unusual that we're seeing this in a sitting president, not during, major campaign periods.
Well,
it's strange.
It weirdly is a major campaign time because I think there is a growing concern by the Democrats that they're about to lose control of the House and the Senate. And my response to any Democrat who is going to look me in the eye and say, we need your vote because we're going to lose the House and the Senate. What the fuck did you do for the last 2 years? Like, you had the House and the Senate for the last 2 years, and you did very little to accomplish growth and stability in this country. I'm going to read you now a couple of the quotes. So, MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love. Like, feeding into the fear mongering of the Roe versus Wade debacle. Then you have another quote where he goes, democracy cannot survive when one side believes that there are only two outcomes to an election. Either they win or they were cheated. I mean, candidly, like, I'm getting to a point where the election's over. Like, Democrats cried foul from 2016 up until 2020. The Republicans are just doing the same thing. Like, I honestly, I'm over condemning people for questioning the sanctity of the election, because there was a large class of Democrats who did the exact same thing over the course of the full 4 years of Donald Trump's presidency. So guess what? The Republicans still get 2 more years of doing this. The next one was, not even a majority of Republicans are MAGA Republicans. Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology. I know because I've been able to work with these mainstream Republicans, but there's no question that the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And that is a threat to this country. Like, it's fear mongering. There are more than enough Republicans who condemn these ideas, who do not align with Donald Trump. Like, the easiest, lowest hanging fruit is Mitt Romney. It's just, we're fear mongering here. We're just trying to get people afraid, upset, nervous, scared. And I don't want to play into it. The only reason I wanted to highlight this and bring it up is, in fact, to be able to showcase this and have people see and read through this. Like, this is the perspective of someone that many of you believe, like, I'm a fucking crazy socialist leftist. I'm not. But even I can see that this is right and wrong.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said.
Yeah, no.
Chris, do you want to comment on this? I went on a lot of rants, but I asked for this story, so
you did. You're doing a great job. I mean, I literally saw this last night, or I saw the pictures last night on Twitter. I literally thought it was a Photoshop job that people were just sending around. I did not realize it was like actually real, the way that it looked and all that. I didn't get a chance to catch it. So Q, I appreciate you highlighting and wrapping up what he said. I'll definitely go back to check it out later this weekend to see what was said for sure.
Yeah. It's,
on that uplifting note,
buy Bitcoin, self-custody it, and do your own research. Don't trust verify.
All right. That's a wrap. It's Friday. Go enjoy your weekends, guys. We are going to be off on Monday. So we'll release some clips. We'll release some fun videos, but we'll be back Tuesday with another live episode. And of course, before we go, we want to remind everyone to please, if you have not yet already purchased your Bitcoin Amsterdam tickets, do so. Use the promo code BMLive to get 10% off. I believe ticket prices are going to be going up next weekend. So get on that, people. And of course, if you are not yet subscribed to the print magazine, please go ahead and hop on over to the Bitcoin Magazine store and use promo code BMLive to get 10% off of your 1-year quarterly subscription to the print mag. Guys, that is a wrap. We'll be back Tuesday.
See you then.